I'm so excited to have a special conversation today. A conversation that is at the heart of Mira. A conversation that the world needs to have, and that is about the awareness of neurodivergence in India and around the world. And I thought no better person to start this conversation with than Mira herself. Ma'am's pet name is Mira. I'm here with Dr. Dhanashri Pawar. She is an angel on earth, honestly. Like the kind of work that I've seen you do over the last few days. It's brought a hope in my eyes, in my heart, that the world can be a better place, especially for kids like me in India and around the world. She is a doctor and an RDI consultant, 10,000 plus hours of coaching. And most importantly, you've impacted more than 200 families in India. And your work, honestly, it speaks volumes. I've seen it in person, I've experienced in person the feedback from parents, and if anything, it's an honor to have you on board here and for the world to know about your work.
Thank you so much, Anushri, for such a wonderful and beautiful introduction. I have been in this field for last 15 plus years, and I'm a medical doctor. I've done my MBBS and postgraduate in community medicine, and it's post my son's diagnosis that really changed my journey, and I came into this field of autism and ADHD. I trained myself as a parent to empower him, to empower myself, and then sharing this knowledge to other families and helping them to get empowered. And yeah, it's been a very, very soul satisfying work for me. And every day is some some or the other kind of miracles, and sometimes we feel that it's the children who are healing us. And I just love that. It for me, it's a very divine work now.
I mean, it is divine work because I've read your book, Autism, I Understand You. And I think probably in 25 years of my life, I've never felt more understood than the book itself.
Thank you.
So I know that you say that it's healing work for you, but it's healing someone else as well who probably reads that book, be it, someone going through, autism or being on the spectrum, or even parents, because that book is primarily for parents who probably want to understand their kids more. Tell us more about that book.
Yeah, so my book is Autism I Understand You, and it was written with a very simple aim that parents who are not understanding medical literature, parents who are, don't understand the medical jargon, okay, or don't want to, because I believe that, and it's a fact that almost all parents of special needs children are exhausted mentally, physically, and we don't want to burden them with another knowledge, tech jargon book.
Yeah.
So I wanted to write very simple, in simple words, make them understand their own child in a very simple but correct way. Because if parents are very clear about their child, only then will they select the right path. Otherwise, I've seen most of the families are confused and stay in this confusion for more than 20 plus years.
Yeah.
And then the child has no direction, the parents are lost, and then eventually it's a hopeless situation for both the parents and the child. And then autism gets, what do you say, mislabeled, that it's a hopeless condition, there's no future. Like it's really bad, because of the way everything was treated. Autism gets labeled, and I feel that's not how it should be,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If you understand and treat the children right in a very respectful way, and then we see miracles in these children. We see that, yeah, they are also developing to their potential,
Yeah.
and then there won't be that hopeless situation that, you know most of the professionals or the parents are going through.
Yeah. No, parents are honestly instrumental in anyone's life, in your life's journey as well. As you said, like your entire journey started from the realization of, you being a parent and you want your child to blossom in the right way and giving them the right space. And it was the same for me as well, with the kind of knowledge that my parents had back in the day. They tried their best to help me, and in some or the other way, I feel that who am I as a person is honestly shaped by what my parents poured into me all this while. It's almost like your parents are like roots, and then they bring about like a strong foundation in your upbringing. So when you branch out and become your own person, they still are the roots of who you are. So it's extremely important, like when we talk about awareness, if we're not talking about the foundational level, which the kind of work that you do, not just like through awareness, but also, in practical day-to-day habitual behavioral training with the kids. I would love to know more about that. I've seen some of that in person. I've heard from parents. How does that look like?
Um, of course, parents are very fundamental to the child's development. That's like everybody knows that. But in this, especially in children of neurodivergence, that becomes critical. And many parents are not aware of their very important role. Most of the parents feel it is the medicine, it is the doctors, it is the therapists, it's the external, the environment, the school, or the teachers who are going to fundamentally empower the child. But that's not at all true, especially when it comes to ADHD and autism and other neurological conditions too, because parents are so critical in the development of the brain, in the development of the mind, which is going to be applied in school and other skills,
Yeah.
which the world will see. But unless the parents are doing their work at home with the child, okay, this the true potential of the child will not be seen by the world. So here in neurodivergence, they are very critical for the child's development. And I always tell this to all my parents, it doesn't matter what is the severity of your child. What matters is you. How passionate you are, how open you are to new concepts, how flexible you are, and how consistent you are to follow this path. If all this you can do, no matter where that severity is, the child will do the best,
Yeah.
do their best, in the world.
That's so beautifully put. I think you said something on the lines of severity, and that is so instrumental in the way that I have seen my autism and ADHD. And most importantly, my awareness campaign is primarily about girls who are misunderstood, because a lot of girls highly heavily mask. So getting the right support from the community, getting the right support, especially at home, because firstly, sometimes you're misdiagnosed or actually not diagnosed at all and diagnosed with conditions like depression and anxiety, and then society gives you labels as difficult to emotional. I feel like it is more difficult for invisible people, like in the sense that you look a certain way, and I've been gotten the term as to you don't look autistic, but internally you're very much, and that's the stereotype I believe that a lot of people, when we talk about severity, really do not see beyond how you look and the very like stereotypical traits of what autism will look like. And that's why it's very important to speak about it being a spectrum, it being different. Like everyone's like biological wirings are going to be different, the neural linkings, as you say, are going to be different. What is it with girls? Because I did this research, a sort of understanding over the last year as to how it looks like in India. And there were like interesting stats. The stats were 3:1. So every 3 boys, only 1 girl is diagnosed. And they did a study in Chandigarh where, if you were given the right tools to diagnose girls, and probably not just to parents, but also to the person, the doctor who was doing the diagnosis, the results were 1:1. So for every girl, there was 1 boy. And so I think it speaks volumes about, I think, stigmas and,
Yes.
just a lot about how diagnosis for girls happens in India. So what are your thoughts on it? And if you had real life examples too.
Yeah, I mean, again, here, parenting is heavily influenced by cultural conditioning in India,
Yeah,
right?
no
And
doubt.
when it comes to girls, they're conditioned right from a very young age to be obedient, compliant, to be polite, to adjust, and to please everyone, isn't it? So most of the girls are culturally conditioned that way. So even if the girl has autism or ADHD, she will tend to mask, she will tend to keep that discomfort or hide that discomfort to herself, okay, because she wants to fit in the society, right? And I'm sure, I mean, many girls don't even know that they are on the spectrum, right? They know they're different, but they have still
Yeah.
not figured out what's happening to them.
It was a story of my life, to be honest. Like I had
Yeah,
the diagnosis early on, but I was
yeah.
told that that's not
Yeah,
true.
so the cultural conditioning is so heavy. It is so
Yeah.
heavy. I mean,
Yeah.
for a condition like autism, the cultural condition decides everything. And for years, it is like that.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to remove the cultural condition in India. And when we look at tests, they are mostly Western, isn't it? Most of the tests are Western, and they don't take into consideration the cultural dynamics in India. Like for example, in the test, when they talk about eye contact, right? So if the child doesn't give eye contact, that's a red flag sign. But for girls, if the girl is not giving eye contact, if she's softly spoken, people will say she's being respectful to elders.
Yeah.
She's a good girl.
Yeah.
So the test is going to, not take into consideration. It won't give you the accurate results because parents will never say, they won't identify that that's an issue.
Yeah.
So good girl, compliant, as
Docile.
long as she's not a trouble to anyone,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And girls have that, like they will, most of the girls, they are very good observant, they'll even if they are in the school, they'll copy the social
Yeah.
behaviors of others, and they'll script that, they'll mask, they'll keep that stress inside, and when they go home, and even the meltdown, when they have a meltdown, the parents will brush it off as she has mood swings,
Yeah. Periods and mood
or
swings. Yeah. Heard that
she's
before.
being very stubborn. So it's brushed off like that, rather than thinking that what is it that the girl is suffering inside. And it's mostly inwards in girls. In boys, the behaviors are very outside. Like many of the children, they're hyperactive. They'll shout. They'll throw things, and it's a very outward symptoms. For girls, it's inwards.
Do you
They'll
often think?
internalize the meltdown. They'll internalize the overwhelmed feelings. And in girls, most of the times you'll see that they have constant stomach aches. They have headaches and they frequently falling ill. So the parents also will keep taking to the doctor and treat all these things rather than
The root
looking at the
cause.
deeper developmental delays
So
and the
interesting.
signs.
That's interesting. I've never thought of it like that because a lot of girls, when they fall sick, it's almost like it's because of periods. If your moods are changing, it's because of periods. So
A
it's
lot.
almost like you're a problem already, and anything is a consequence of one problem that the society has labeled as a problem, which is not actually a problem.
Not actually a problem. And many girls I have seen is they fall sick more around exam time. Like they're so stressed that they'll fall sick. They'll fall sick. So during exams, like you can't even talk to them. Like they are in the cave. They'll not talk. They'll want to eat that predictable food. Okay, and they will mostly keep awake at night and sleep during the day. This is very common with the girls on the spectrum that I have seen, and it's very difficult with transitions in the schedule. Like, it's very difficult to wake up in the morning. So if the school is early and they are like 2 to 3 hours in the morning, they're like numb. You cannot talk with them, you cannot tell them anything, they can't hurry. They need that time to really get to their fullest attention. So schools are a big headache because especially if they're in the morning, many times the girls are pushed. They have to go, or sometimes most of the times they don't go.
Yeah.
The
I
attendance is affected.
had an interesting question. You mostly do mind guiding, which is almost on the lines of like neuroplasticity.
Hmm.
I know a lot of work on autism and ADHD or people who are on the spectrum is medical intervention. And that medical intervention means a lot of extreme medication. How does that come into play with treatment and how useful or non-useful it is? Because I know a lot of people on the spectrum who have been on those medications and it's not really proved well. So
Yeah.
what have been
It's,
your
I feel that behaviors are communication and we should not mask them. As far as medical literature goes, there's no cure for autism. We all know that
yeah.
it's a neurological condition, it's a different brain.
Hmm.
And when mostly the medicines are more for the parents to handle the child rather than being child friendly in itself.
Hmm.
Okay. And the psychiatric medications, they have their huge side effects. And if you are on the right path, medications will not be required. But what the problem is that it's like adding fuel to the fire. The child is diagnosed, they have certain issues, then the parents are said, you have to start everything. It's like an intense pressure situation that you have to do very fast at an early age. You'll have to do the interventions. The more you do,
Yeah.
the you will require a lot of efforts for the child to develop. So the parents will start everything. They'll start all therapies. The child is going for 80 hours therapy a week. Yeah, that's one I've heard. Like, so much therapy that they feel that if we give more therapy, the child will come out of this very fast. It will be faster. Somehow they have this myth.
Mm.
And then what is happening? So much transition, so much load the brain cannot take. It's a
Yeah.
fragile brain.
It's already under overwhelm. You're trying to use
Correct.
these suppressants, it's doing
Correct. And
contradictory
what's
to.
the approach that most of the therapies are? It's to push, force, command. So the child's thinking is not activated. It's more like how to make the child more compliant and learn the skills rather than work on the main issue, which is the children are not thinking.
Hmm.
Autism is a thinking difference. They are not thinking the way we think. The thinking is only not developed. So they are mostly in their impulsive state. So instead of so what is happening is when you work on a very wrong thing, then what is going to happen is the results. Although the child will learn a few skills, but it will be at the cost of behaviors and no meaningful communication. The child becomes like a robot.
And an internal suffering they can't even say
They
to the
can't even
world.
say
Yeah.
that's the agony, and
Yeah.
it's very difficult because parents come from again the cultural conditioning that at a certain age the child should go to school
Hmm.
irrespective of whatever the problems the child is having. So up to a certain age they'll go for therapy, then eventually no, the child is 6, we have to put them in school. It's a school age, and somehow they kind of convince themselves that in the school they will learn interaction. All these problems will be taken care of school.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if that was true, but
Well.
it's not. It
Yeah.
just worsens the problem because that brain is not equipped. It's like going to war every day. I'm sure you've
Yeah.
experienced that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the children who mask, I feel they never get help only
Yeah.
because they've learned to mask so well that not even the parents know what they're
Yeah,
struggling
you
to.
almost are, brought to think that you're the problem. And somehow you need to fix yourself, which means forcing yourself at the cost of your, internal
Yeah,
dilemma
and
that you
that
have
dilemma
to.
only you know. The child
Yeah.
knows.
Yeah.
No one else knows that. Even if you tell it to someone, they'll be like, don't understand what's happening. Or again, as I said, mood swings, and you're just being very sensitive.
Yeah.
You have to adjust. You're being very soft and nazuk. You have to be strong. So that is how people will convince you and try to give you solutions. So they don't understand it's not a personality trait.
Yeah.
It's coming from the brain.
Yeah, it's almost like we spoke the other day, right? It's not that the child is trying to fight the parents, it's trying to fight the overwhelm inside. And that's exactly how I felt because I had no grievances with the world other than some atmospheric condition affecting me during that time. But how do I say that the textures are affecting me? How do I say that, there's a sensory overwhelm, which is only something that my system can recognize. I cannot tell it to the world, right? So there's no real way other than just slight empathy from the parents' side to probably understand that there's a difference.
And even if the child is suffering and there are issues in the school, again the therapies are intensified. So now there's therapy post school also. Because the school identified again certain problems
Yeah.
which the school can't take care of. So then they are said, now you have to, go have extra classes of therapy.
Yeah, you're a bad child now, so you have to.
Or you have to send a shadow teacher, or you need to take care now. Because so what is happening? It's like we are only increasing the behaviors, and then we are only putting more sessions, more therapies. Where does the child have me time? The downtime. Continuously, the child is expected to perform, to talk, to answer the questions, to do those skills.
Yeah.
Okay, the child doesn't have a childhood. The child of his age who is a neurotypical and the child who is a neurodivergent, is the neurodivergent child is doing so much hard work even though they have a more fragile brain.
Yeah.
That's
And they're on the same level with each
yeah,
other.
that's the irony. Like the brain is weak and still you're pushing the child to do so much more. Don't we say that something is fragile, we need to handle with care?
But it's not seen, which is the problem of society.
They are doing, if it is fragile, you make them work more. Then of course then the behaviors are going to increase.
Yeah.
Everything will be then it becomes a medical case, because we see in puberty, if we don't stop pushing the children, epilepsy is very common in autism. Okay, epilepsy comes in. Then if epilepsy comes in, then of course you have to you have to be on drugs. Epilepsy, the cure is drugs. We have to have on medicine. Once those medicines are started, again the side effects of those, and then it continues for years and years. And
Yeah, it's going to go
every
into-
attack of a episode of epilepsy, you never know where, how the brain is affected, what part of your body is affected. So that is just the start, and then by adulthood, if the behavior still worsen, the OCD, anxiety, then more psychiatric medications are added.
And then the final place is rehab. Like that's
Yeah, I mean,
just
if nothing
easier,
is working and parents are also old by that time, the final place is rehab. So they have created a story. The narrative gets formed. See,
That's also mold, right? Like A, B, C, D.
yeah,
and
it's
just
now
drop
if
the child into
majority
different
of children are being that way,
Yeah.
then the evidence will show, the survey will show, na, that autism is bad.
Yeah, the outcome is going to be
That
this.
if
So
you
it's
if the
hopeless.
child has autism, they'll need rehab. So the once those surveys show that, the professionals are of course going to say that, oh, there is no hope, because all the children have landed up in rehab only. They need caregiving whole life. You will have to give them instructions. They'll not think on their own because of what we only did. It's our fault that we treated them like that.
Yeah.
You've not understood the root cause, you've not understood the condition, then you're doing the wrong things, and then you're still expecting the right results. If you're going to do the wrong thing, how will you get a right result? So it's going to take years, and parents have to understand, take ownership that this is something that I have to help. I'm going to be the primary stakeholder here. It's me first who's going to empower myself. And I'm going to be the advocate for my child. I have to understand my child so well that till the time the child can advocate for themselves, I'm going to be their advocate. I have to understand their needs, their challenges very clearly, their supports. What is the environment that my child flourishes, does well? Many children, they do well, they do the academics so well in one-to-one setting.
Hmm.
But still, I've seen parents push them in school. No, they have to sit in 50 children. Why? Why is the need? You want education.
Yeah.
Why don't you just teach? If the child is learning so well in a one on one setup, they are getting educated, right?
Yeah.
What is this compulsion that no, they have to go in school and only in school they should learn academics?
That's the
This is
condition.
cultural conditioning,
It is.
the pressure,
Yeah.
society pressure.
Yeah.
But parents have to understand that the diagnosis has already changed your life.
Hmm.
You are on a different path. You better accept it as early as you can. Once you accept it and be okay with that, eventually it won't matter to you. Yeah, fine. If it's one on one, okay, I'll do it in a one-on-one setting. Today we have so much alternative approaches for education. School is not the
Absolutely.
only thing, right?
Yeah.
And children are doing so well in the alternative approaches. So why is this compulsion that no, they have to? And what is, I don't understand. How is it satisfying to see the child coming home and going into a meltdown?
Yeah.
It is not at all. And still parents don't question that it is the environment, the school,
Yeah.
it is not suited for
Yeah.
the autistic, and unfortunately we don't have schools in India
That's true.
who can cater
Yeah.
to children.
Yeah, it's like almost the system is failing people. It's not people who are failing the system. And I almost feel like my research sort of takes me to understanding why, like, the education system, why the conditioning even happened in the first place. It's almost become a sense of normalcy, right? To like send your kid to school, they need to do a 9 to 5 job, like, after university, and then, have kids, like all of these, like, societal pressures
Yeah.
almost put on us, but at the same time the conditioning of the education system, to go back to, it actually comes from the industrial revolution time, right? Like everyone
Yes.
wanted a system where almost to say like cogs and machines, but they wanted people to be those, replacement during that time, because it suited to that time. And then it led to an education system where like everyone had to learn a specific thing in order to get this specific output. And it was sort of helpful during that time. But before that, like education as a systematic concept almost feels oppressive now. It did not exist before.
Yeah.
And that sort of leads to the question of, like, when times evolve, things should change, and so should education. And that's why, like, my advocacy project is making individuality respected and appreciated, because it is sort of last year, sort of thinking about my neurodivergence, thinking about sort of societal conditioning and why certain things happen a specific way, and almost what my purpose is. I've always tried to find meaning in the kind of work that I did. So that led me to thinking about the question of humanity, as almost morbid as it sounds. But humanity is heading in a very different direction now. Like as we spoke about the Industrial Revolution, we have AI now. And AI has absolutely changed the way that, our workplace is like, our schools are like. It has changed the dynamics a lot. And when there's a change of dynamics, it almost calls into question, like, how are we changing with it? Are we doing enough? And it's almost forced us, humanity, to think, how do we operate differently? So even though like the stigmas exist, I think they need to be broken now. And even if people don't want for them to be broken, they are going to get broken, because the system is going to fail you now. And it's not just going to fail the neurotypical, no, the neurodivergent individuals, but it's going to fail very heavily everyone, like the entire humanity itself. Which is why I think, for me, this campaign is actually about the entirety of humanity, each and every one of us, and to celebrate those differences. The turning point in my life was The End of Average, the book by Todd Ross. And the first chapter itself, it speaks about there's no concept as a human, average brain. And that shook me. It was the most epiphanical readings that I've done, epiphanical turning points of my life. I couldn't. Life just made sense to me at that point. Thinking about all of the curious questions of AI, thinking about my own diagnosis and where we can sort of bridge the gap, and also realizing the immense potential that differences will have during this time, because everything is going to be automated.
Yeah.
Absolutely everything. Like, I could copy a code from AI and build my own software. Like, that's how progressive the environment has become.
Yeah.
So I think differences are going to be the heights of, change now. It's going to be the wave of change. how do we do that? It's the question. Like, we need education to be, moved in a way that it's almost sort of a revolution. That's why I almost feel like this project is like almost like, not to say that I'm philosophical, but it's like a social thought. It's almost a cultural movement and a shift that we really need. And we've seen it in pockets of the world. We've seen it in Denmark. We've seen it in Finland. People trying to create organizations who actually help people flourish as who they are. And individuals who are on the spectrum, they have turned out to be insanely creative, and almost feel like some individuals have a spark. And if you let that spark grow, like, no AI can change it. And there was an interesting line in your book, we spoke about this before, which was the simulation, the plane landing in the water. Like, I would love for you to share with the world and how AI sort of plays into that.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has, I'm sure, I mean, it's a beautiful movie, Captain Sully, and he lands the plane on the river, and at the end of the movie, they're showing those artificial simulations, that they're saying, what you did was wrong, because every simulation is showing that. And then he says that, did that take into consideration the amount of pressure I had? That stress factor, and of course a lot of other human factors. You did not consider that. So according to then they again tried it, and then they realized that he's right.
Yeah.
So that's, I think AI is that. I mean, AI can never be like a human, and no AI or computer has ever even come closer to a human brain. The supercomputer that our brain works, no computer can be like that. Still they are not able to make that. The mind is so mysterious.
Yeah.
And that is where dynamic intelligence comes into picture. The ability to think under or ability to take decision in unpredictable environments. No one on this planet other than human beings can do that. We continue to evolve. Even in COVID we evolved, and the whole world is changing, but we are also able to evolve. Dinosaurs could not, they got extinct. The species which cannot evolve, they get extinct. But human beings, God created in such a way that we are a self-evolving organism. And that's because of this brain that we have.
Yeah.
So every brain is unique. Every person is so different.
Yeah.
So individuality that you talk about, right? It should be respected, and I mean every human being should be that way, accepted, celebrated, and uh, this cultural conditioning and the stigmas and the taboos have to be removed.
Yeah.
We need to update ourselves, because as you said, education, the industrial revolution had this education 2.0 framework,
Yeah.
where memorization was,
Standardization is.
yes, like memorization, you get good marks, that is equal to a good job, and it worked in the 19th century. But today it's not about that. It's about creativity, it's about collaboration,
You can't work without social skills.
it's about emotional quotient, emotional intelligence. It's about the ability to think out of the box in extreme stressful conditions. Today, people are paid for the ways they are creative, how creative they can be with the strategies, even under immense pressure, under immense stress. How creatively can you think?
And that pressure as well almost brings the more creative. I've always thought
Yeah.
that pressure almost creates something that I never imagined. It's like a breakthrough.
Yeah. So, if those are the skills that we require in the schools, this is unheard of.
Yeah.
You're not thinking about critical thinking at all. We're
It's
still on
like sameness.
memorization.
It's the world that wants
It's like
sameness.
everybody, that knowledge is sucking in. They know everything, and they're just memorizing.
I know that. Yeah.
And they know the world, but they don't know themselves.
Yeah.
They don't know what they like. Children are like robots. You ask them, what do you like? And yeah, one word answers they'll give. Nobody talks in description. They're like, they'll give, I'm fine. How are you? I'm fine. It's
Yeah.
okay. Like, they don't know anything else to say.
Because we've been told to, the first focus, as we spoke, right? It's the contribution and value to the world. How are you useful to the world? And that's the first focus. And then probably you'll think about, how am I feeling in the moment? But you don't understand the natural consequence of the state of your mind is going to affect the output that you give to the world. If your internal state is not good, if your mental health is not good, if you're not physically fit, there is no way, no matter how much information you've sucked in through, still imagery or whatever dynamic intelligence, it's not, still not going to be able to contribute to the world. So people don't understand it's the other way around, rather than just focusing on like contribution and value to the environment and everyone around you, but often forget that you are the core of all of it.
Yeah. Right. And mental health is an epidemic now. It's like the top, the top health problem today in the world. Mental health. And everybody knows about childhood traumas, and we are all suffering from that. And so whatever, even if that good job and everything, at the end of the day you come home, and we are all in a family unit, right? We have a spouse, we have children, and what matters is relationships, connections. So if you don't have good connections, healthy connections, even if you have a good job, you're earning well, then you won't be satisfied, because there's no one to share with.
Yeah.
Everybody is lonely, depression. It's so common. So people are. This the whole, the way the software is being developed is a flawed, I feel.
Yeah.
For me, connection is like, in one word, it's a full circle of life for me. As a child, if you've seen my video, as a child, I did not get connections.
I know you've seen that.
And of course, because of the traditional parenting ways, and I felt I was different. I was a bit eccentric in my own ways. But now I look in hindsight and I realize it was the connections that was missing. And maybe if that time I was given that space, safe space, I would have been a very different person today. But nevertheless, connection was missing. I was a good girl. I did what my parents wanted me to do. I realized that it's the marks. Good marks are the only way
To get validated from
to
your
get
parents.
validated, where my parents will love me. That was
Yeah.
my thing.
Yeah.
And I did my MBBS. I studied well, and then I got married. And when I had my first child, and he got a diagnosis of autism, I realized he's missing connection. So autism is again lack of social interaction. The child is in their own world, and I realized he's not able to connect with me. So connection, the word came back in my life in the form of my son, and I realized he is also having the same childhood now, where he's also not getting a connection, and that is because of his different brain. But it's still the same problem, isn't
Circle
it?
of life.
And that's when I realized that I did not get the connection, but I will see to it that he gets the connection. And why connection is so important for us. That one word, that connection, it helps in growth. It doesn't matter how many therapies and medicines and surgeries, all it takes is connection. Sometimes the most simple things are the most powerful. And when I tell my parents connection, they are like, we thought you were going to talk about some hi fi surgery, some, like big things, and you're talking about connection. And I said, but that's the treatment.
Yeah.
And that's the most difficult thing. Anything else is simple. But this is what you need to do. And it's as simple as that. If you can do that, and you will see your child paying attention, doing social interaction, really connecting like a human,
Yeah.
not like a robot, learning well, because you've given that safe space now.
Yeah, you understood their heart.
Yeah, and they are different, and they're not disabled. They're different. So when they get that space, they will create. Like yesterday only, my son did not put water in the tea. He directly put tea powder and sugar. And if I'm coming from a traditional mind and I have no idea of new types of teas,
Yeah.
I'll look at it, oh, he's forgotten.
Yeah.
But then he was very innovative. He got creative. He made caramel. He wanted to make
Just love
caramelized
that.
tea. So you see, even everyone, it doesn't matter whether neurotypical or neurodivergent, you give them a safe space.
Yeah, don't put a cap and a limitation on their
Yeah,
growth.
and they'll make this world such a better place. We've given the world to the neurotypicals and we've seen the results. Now is the time where the neurodivergent people need to come up. They need to be empowered. They need to be given that safe space so that they can heal the world
Yeah.
because they're so divine.
I almost felt that yesterday, like meeting each and every one of them is almost like a sense of energy that you get from them. It's so positive, it's so like enlightening. Like I almost sat with that for like a long time. Like hearty, really hearty. And it's like it's a privilege to see your work there at Divyam. Like nothing like that I have seen all my life. Some way or the other, I'm so glad that all the research that I've done, like somehow, like I was connected to you and the name connected to you as well. It's almost like a full circle moment. And like I couldn't be more honored to have you speak about this because what you've created is not just, it's not a business. It's not a business, it's a safe haven. It's a safe
Yeah.
haven for parents, it's a safe haven for children, and it's almost like a community.
Yeah, and the word is connection. Even there, I have two centers now in Mumbai. One is at Chembur, one is at Mulund. Mulund is a newly opened one. And I do not do any therapies there. It's not a traditional therapy center. Even the names of the rooms are not
I've
therapy
seen that, yeah.
rooms. It's beautiful, divine. The names are given. Ganpati names I have
Yeah.
given Sanskrit names, and because I wanted to keep it a very comfy home environment for the kids. They're going to come every day, and I don't want them to feel what is this? Where are we going? Like a corporate thing or like a structured hospital
Yeah,
or a
it's not sterile
clinical
at all. It's
or a
so
school, because these are all
welcoming.
traumatic places for them.
Yeah.
Some children have been traumatized in school and they come to me, and it takes time for that trauma to heal. Some children are traumatized in therapy centers and they come to me. I don't want them to remember that trauma and relive that trauma. So the setup is very homely,
Yeah.
and it's really fascinating and surprising. And when parents will call up and they'll say, do you do speech therapy, do you do occupational therapy, and I say, no, we don't do
Yeah.
that. But what is it that you want? I want my child to speak, I want my child to have communication. Then why don't you just focus on that?
Yeah.
You will get that in the right way. Yes, some children do need therapies, but it's case to case. All therapies are respected. I respect each and every therapy. But I feel that every case is unique, every child is unique, and we cannot have a standardized protocol that speech delay hai to speech therapy de do.
Hmm.
It's not worked. We have to understand and in hindsight, why is the delay, first of all, and work on those mental processes which are required for speech. People think speech is this area. Just push the child to talk and the child will speak one day. That doesn't work. We need to give connections.
Hmm.
Connections is what is going to build the brain for speech.
Yeah.
Connections is going to build the brain for behaviors. Connection is the thing that's going to build the brain for skills.
Yeah.
It's not pushing skills or pushing positive behaviors, jabardasti in the child, or no making the child forcibly do that behavior in front of you. They'll be all good. The moment they go in the real world, they're back to square one from where they started. So what's the point?
Yeah.
So build connections. Why don't you just build the software which is required for all of that and just trust the child. They will perform well. They will do their skills well. They will behave well. They'll talk. And when they talk, it'll be very meaningful like a human, not like a robot or a parrot.
Yeah.
So that's the work that we do in Divyam.
Yeah. I feel another interesting point in all of my research was that a lot of not just neurodivergent kids, but also neurotypical kids struggle a lot with the EQ bit. I think that's one thing that's not like actively taught, because like teachers come, teachers go, you have your internal dynamics, like some are masking, some are not masking. It's a very complicated environment for anyone to grow up, especially now. Everyone has cell phones, so their dynamics are more attached to their phones more than the real life connections that we talk about. So I feel like it's not just the neurodivergent kids who, need to be given the, more special training of, EQ development, but it's just everyone. Because
Yeah.
if I've seen in corporate, like a lot of kids who grow up to be adults, they're not really well equipped with handling a lot of corporate tasks that require something like timeliness, something like time management, and even social interactions. They lack a lot in that department, and that goes back to the foundation of education, the foundation of how you were raised. And I feel like there's definitely a change that we can bring about. And as you said, like, it is not happening right now, but we are seeing a wave of change through you. And hopefully the idea of my campaign as well and my work as well is to expand not just the awareness, but actually bring about a policy change. Like, the start is at the local level, and then we can possibly go at a higher level to bring about a massive change in the entire ecosystem. As you said, it's not just the education system, but we, as parents, or as teachers, but we as well need to change culturally. And that's why I almost call it like a cultural movement, because it's not one level of change, it's multi-layered.
Yeah, it's multi-layer, and financial capability and financial makes a huge difference in India. I mean, higher if the parents are privileged, things are still smoother. But if it's a poor family and have a child on the spectrum, that the autism is the least concern for them.
Absolutely. Like, the first thing they'll think about is bread and butter, and then
Yeah, so there are a lot of problems. There are a lot of factors which affect the autism, the culture, the finance, everything, because it's a condition. It's a different way of living. The child is different. It's not a temporary thing. 3 months, 6 months, we just have to bear with it. Any condition, if it's for 3 months, 6 months, people can still do certain changes for the child or for that individual. But if the individual is different for the whole life or for the next 10, 20 years, if I have to take care of the child, it is difficult. If the family is poor or they are coming from a poor background, it's difficult. And that's the work that needs to be required, because how do you build connections in that kind of environment? That's the main challenge for all. I mean, the people who are working in this field is, and I'm trying to do that, because I started a very recently I started a group training program for parents who cannot afford these international interventions. And
oh, I've seen that. Yeah.
yeah, and it's by the name of Raising Future Champions, and it's a group training program where parents are taught in a very simple way and actual realistic. 5 minutes a day I teach how to do the connection, and you just need internet. It's online. So whether the my idea is to reach each and every parent, even if they're in a village, they don't have doctors around, they don't have any centers, but they know that their child is different, and how can they be empowered, even if they don't know English, even if they don't know medical literature.
But they know their child
They
now
know the
through you.
child,
Through you.
and they know how they have their house, which is a safe space for the child. That's it we need. We don't need any tools, any equipments. We don't need. We just need a parent who is ready to learn and do it at home. And even in neurotypicals, the EQ is missing. Why? Because we stop playing with children. We don't play, and play is so underrated. We play till the age of 5 or 6. We stop playing with kids. After that, we have structured sports. We'll play badminton, tennis, cricket, but we won't play unstructured things. We'll not sit and talk. So, reciprocation, these play are where reciprocation happens. There's a lot of back and forth that is happening in these play, and that stops. So 5 years, 6 years, and now the child is not getting that back and forth from their parents.
And you said those experiences are important for your neural
Yeah, and for
connections.
self-regulation to develop, for self-awareness to develop. These are the markers for emotional intelligence. That is why today's children, even the self-awareness is so weak. because they're looking into screens and screens are not doing back and forth.
Screens are also another form of conditioning.
Yeah. And the how can you have, and they are all very static. They know the stages, everything is pre-designed. Human interaction is very unpredictable, and children need that for the growth. We need a little unpredictability, and that's where it's called safe surprises. We need safe surprises in our daily life. That's what grows the brain. That's how we evolve. And if the environment is lacking that, we need a safe space and we need safe surprises. If that is lacking, then how will the brain develop to a level where these children are very good in static intelligence? So by marks, they are having marks. I mean, they're learning, they're memorizing. They get good marks, they get good colleges, they get good jobs. But at the end of the day, what matters is connections, is the relationship. And that's why today divorces have also increased. Why? They can't reciprocate. Because they didn't learn that in childhood.
Yeah, because the compatibility is on the basis of, when it's measured, it's on the basis of your educational level or your
Yeah,
jobs
they
and how
thought
much money you
that's,
make, and that's
yeah.
enough to be compatible. So
So,
interpersonal relationships are so important.
so that is
So
actually
important.
the base of everything in future. When you are an adult, your relationship is the marker for your success eventually. If you have a good relationship with your partner, you're going to grow so well. In individually also, you'll grow because of that relationship.
Yeah, it's healthy.
It's healthy. So everything gets based. Your money, your career, your physical health, your mental health is again very much enmeshed with this relationship. Like it's this relationship is nurturing every domain of your life. And that one relationship, if they're not able to do that, there's no reciprocation because of they didn't do that in their childhood, then it's then they are disturbed, and that is what is happening today. Everybody is lonely even though they have everything. We are not still happy.
Yeah. That's it's mind-boggling, but it's true to a great degree, and we see that everywhere in the world now, not just in
It's
India.
so difficult to get a person who is non-judgmental, who will who will listen to us without criticizing, without judging, without giving an opinion.
We need that happy club, as you say.
Yeah, we need that happy club where come sit, you can
Yeah.
talk whatever you want,
Yeah.
and we are not going to judge you.
Yeah, no, I feel that with you. You're such safe space. I feel like, I mean, firstly, like your book was extremely healing to me. I didn't even know like a part of me needed that. But then when I like, read parts of it, it was just like, wow, like somebody actually hears me. I had lost hope that anyone in the world would probably understand me more than myself. But, speaking to you, it's been like almost like God sent. Like it's the kind of work that I'm wanting to do, and you're almost like a bridge that almost enables that to happen. And the learnings that I've gotten from you over the last few days are so fundamental in almost bringing this to life as well. So I wouldn't even say like it's an honor. It's truly a blessing from God that I get to meet an angel, like a soul like you, who truly has brought about not just change in my life, but you've been doing this work for such a long time. If anything, like I wish you the very, very best in
Thank you
bringing
so
about this
much.
change. And I want the world to know the kind of work that you're doing. And I'm so, so, so grateful to have met you and for you to have this conversation with the world.
Thank you so much, Anushri. And I feel so much more than this when I've seen you. You're such a divine soul. And you have absolutely no idea how it makes me feel as a parent when I see you shine. And we need people like you. And my only aim is that if I can add something to your platform and what you're doing, your work, it is going to be such a big thing for me.
You've already
Because
made it
you have
meaningful in so many
because you
ways.
are such a big medium to get this word, to get this work across the whole world, I must say. I mean, world is your, what do you say, world is your stage,
Stage.
right? So, and you are there, and I just want to be backstage and help you do that,
Yeah.
whatever little I can contribute, because I know that we are missing joy and happiness. And somehow I feel children like you are a means to get that. You have taught us how what is a true connection, what it means to be non-judgmental, what it means to see a person just as they are without forming any opinion, what it is to look beyond conditioning. I mean, the work that I have done with myself, the inner work, it is because of my son. I would have never been here if it was not my son. So I feel you guys are a gift to us because we would have lost humanity. I don't know what it would mean to be a human without you. So, and people like you, if you have the platform, I'm sure the world is going to be a very good place. And I feel the future is so safe in your hands. Today, when we see small children, we feel how will 20 years from now be, and it is very scary.
It
But
was.
if we have people like you, I don't think we should be scared of, because you'll definitely make this world so peaceful and so joyous and so happy.
I'm trying to hold my tears not to cry. But honestly, like that's so heart touching. And one of the reasons why I actually moved last year was it was this moment in my life where I almost knew that this is my purpose. Like all the struggles, all the inner battles, like almost feel worth it. And yet, like yesterday was that point when I was meeting the parent, and the parent said, like, my hope was lost. I felt so hopeless, but seeing you, it almost ignites a spark that I want to give my child one more chance.
Yeah,
And that was like there was no bigger victory in life than hearing that. There's no bigger victory. Like
true.
it just feels like all my efforts towards this, it just makes sense. Like I feel so content,
It's
and the
it's
journey's
soul
just begin.
satisfying. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
coming
Thank
here.
you so much, dear.
Thank you.
Thank you.